Becoming and the Principles of Creation. Book 3.
And wait for Leanne.
Chapter 15.
So book 3, chapter 15, Becoming and the Principles of Creation. Everybody got it?
Yep, I do.
Well, I'm on my mobile phone, so I don't know if I'll be able to download it.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's okay. Just hanging out with us. All good. We won't pressure you to read.
Thank you.
Here comes Kim. We can begin.
Now it's official. Kim's here.
Kim is here.
Wow, it's a lot. Morning.
Morning.
Morning. All right, if we're all ready, Misha, you're first on my list. Are you happy to read first?
Yes. How many paragraphs?
Sorry?
No number?
First paragraph, chapter 15.
Okay. Before creation of the new can begin, you must come to know the way of creation as it is. It has not always been the same, and it will not be the same in the future as it is now. But there are certain principles that govern creation. These principles are like unto the patterns that were created for your time of learning, and that will be applied anew to the creation of new patterns for the new time that is upon us. Keep going.
Yep.
Yeah, usually two paragraphs each. If you just could slow down, like really take it easy. So we have time to let it sink in.
Do you want me to read the first one again?
No, it's okay. Just move on.
Okay. The first principle of creation is that of movement. Rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis.
Thank you. Or the stiffness of death is nothing but a lack of movement. A lack of movement of the blood through the veins and the consequent stiffening of the muscles. The Dead Sea is a quote, dead sea because of lack of movement. Thus, these are the excellent examples to illustrate the principle of movement as life itself. The idea of lack of movement as lack of life.
Thanks, Misha. Okay, I'm next. Life and the movement of being into form is what occurred when God spoke and the word came into being. Movement is energy, a life force of creation and of being, both in unity and in time. By being, you are in movement. By being, you are an expression of being. The second principle of creation, then, is that being is. It is what is, and it is the expression of what is. Life is movement through the force of expression. The third principle of creation is thus expression. It's enough for me. Chaz, are you reading?
Sure. These are not, however, separate principles, but a single unifying principle of wholeness. Movement being expression. One did not occur before the other, as they are not separate. There was movement into being and an expression of being. But what was there to move before there was being?
Mhm.
This is the way mind looks at principles, one coming after the other and building upon each other. This is not the way of creation, which is why these principles of unity must be seen as the undivided wholeness of a principle of unity before creation of the new can begin. Shall I carry on?
Yeah.
Let me use the creation story of what was once my tradition as an example. Before God, quote unquote, said anything, a mighty wind swept over the wasteland and waters. The wind, which was a great signifier of movement, as rigor mortis is the lack of movement, is the first element mentioned. I'm sorry for that. Is the first element mentioned in this particular creation story. Sorry about that. The first mention of movement is literally present in all creation stories because there is no story without movement. There is no story to tell without movement. Nothing is happening. So movement might be likened to something happening, to the beginning of the story and the beginning of creation.
Chantel?
You're muted, Chantel.
Thank you, Alison. Then God, a being, spoke. Here we have both the introduction of a being and the continuation of movement. Speaking denotes not only a speaker, the being, but the movement of sound. Then we are told the content of the words. It was said, "Let there be light." More movement. Only when movement, being, and expression came together, however, was there light. Light might be seen in this example as the first act of creation. I repeat this story not as a fact or to still any doubts about these principles of creation, but to give you an example that is easily understood, an example of the way in which these principles work together. What I have left out of this story, the formless wasteland, the earth and the water that the wind first swept across, and upon which the light first descended, is an interesting omission made by many. What were the earth and water if they were not formed?
Kath, are you reading today? No. Andrew?
Yep. Just before you go on, I had a bad night. I'm just gonna leave the recording on. I'm just gonna zoom out of here, darlings. So just keep reading. Have a beautiful day. Mwah. I'll keep recording, so it's all good.
Okay, thanks, Colin.
They were barren form unable to create or bear fruit. Form was simply barren form before movement swept across it and animated it with the attention and awareness of spirit, with sound, light, and expression. Could these barren forms not be compared to the forms of the not yet elevated? What if the existence of form was seen to predate the animation of that form with life and spirit? Would this not be consistent with what we attempt to do here? With our continual work of creation? Would this not even be consistent with spirit existing in every living form from the beginning of time until the end of time? Time is what begins and ends. Time is what began when life took on existence in form and space. It is temporal rather than eternal. Alongside it, in the state of unity, rests all that is eternal, all that is real. What is real is but another way of saying what is true. What is true is eternal life, not temporal life. There are no degrees of life. One form is not more alive than another. All that lives contains the breath or wind of spirit, which is eternal and complete.
Thanks, Andrew. Alison.
Okay. Expression, movement, and being are about what is eternal passing through what is temporal. Thus I return you to the lesson on pass-through, which was contained within this course. The course sought to teach you to develop a relationship with all that passes through you. Now is the time when the fruit of those efforts will be reaped. For what passes through you now is a relationship without end. What passes through you now is the eternal come to replace the temporal. To try to capture the eternal would be like trying to catch the wind. But just as the wind can power many machines endlessly when it is allowed to pass through, so too can spirit endlessly empower form when it is allowed to pass through. Kim?
Oh, sure. You might say that the wind comes and the wind goes. It blows in mighty gales and whispers in gentle breezes. Any sailor knows the wind is fickle. But any sailor also knows the wind never dies. You have all been sailors here, animated by the wind of spirit, and at one time sailing, flying along with the wind at your back, and at another time sitting still or seemingly bobbing along with no apparent direction. You have attempted to build better sails to catch the wind or motors to replace it, never realizing its constant and continual presence only needs to be allowed to pass through you, to be in relationship with you, never realizing that this is, in truth, what animates you, that this is that without which you cease to be. Continual and unblocked and aware pass-through is what we now consider.
Thanks, Kim.
Okay.
Leanne, are you ready today?
Yes, sounds good. You have been prepared for this by the realization that your thinking mind will no longer be necessary as your access to unity or Christ consciousness is maintained or sustained. Let us begin with the idea of maintenance and proceed to the idea of sustenance. Maintenance is thought of most often as keeping what you have and as keeping what you have in good repair. It is not often thought of as a lasting measure, which is the primary difference between the idea of maintenance and the idea of sustenance. Maintenance assumes that you already have something about you and that you wish to take care of it so that it will continue to be of service to you. Maintenance implies a certain attitude, an attitude of care, vigilance, anticipation, and a knowing that without this care, vigilance, and anticipation, the value of what you seek to maintain will be lost. Thus, we look at maintenance as the work or relationship with the desired service. In this example, maintenance is what you give in order to receive the maximum connection to unity that is possible in this time. You realize that some breaks in service will still occur. That maintenance will not make the connection perfect, but that it will keep it of service to you.
Okay, back to Misha.
And so we begin the idea of maintenance of your relationship with unity. You have experienced unity now, and you wish it to continue to serve you. You thus must strive to maintain the conditions that will allow it to do so. This is, as with all maintenance, a temporary measure, but one you desire to have discussed, just as we discuss parameters of your state of consciousness, conscious awareness. To move from maintenance to sustenance is our goal. However, to sustain is to keep in existence. To recognize unity as sustenance is to recognize it as that which sustains life. Sustaining unity or Christ consciousness is being done with the need to maintain conditions that allow it to be present. Maintenance will lead to sustenance. Let this idea enter you now. You have left behind the conditions of learning. Why? Because they're no longer needed. The time of learning has ended. When this time of becoming has ended, the conditions that allow your acceptance and discovery of all that is available within unity or Christ consciousness will no longer be needed. This will be as big a step as was the step that left behind the conditions of learning, a step from which you at times feel as if you are still reeling. This step was like the final step. Yeah. This step was like the final step after your ascent of the highest mountain. These dialogues might be seen as taking place there, with the guide and the team of climbers who accompany you on your ascent. And at this highest point of the highest peak of the highest mountain, you pause and become accustomed to the thinner air. The view from above to what you now can see. Catch a breath and let the wind of spirit fill your lungs once again.
Thanks, Misha. Ian, we're up to in the third book, chapter 15, which is becoming and the principles of creation. And it's 15.23. That's my shot. Okay, here is where you work in relationship to maintain what you have learned. For you know that when you return to the level ground on which you climbed, you will be different as a result of having made your ascent. The hard work is done. What you gain here, you gain from what is beyond effort and beyond learning, and from the maintenance of the state in which you reject the conditions of learning. You maintain here, in short, all of the conditions necessary to reach your goal. What you will have gained on your return will be the goal itself, the sustenance. For what you will have gained will never leave you, but will sustain you forevermore. Are you ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to be spacing out for a bit, so I'll just give the names of people who are coming up next. Andrew, Alison, Kim, Leanne, Chantel. Alison, you can be in charge. Take it away, Andrew.
I like that last one, how when we reach the top of the mountain and the air is thin, and I feel like that to get there, I don't know, just to know that that top point is there, which is here, but it's motivating. It feels to me motivating to work something to work towards, even though it's already here now, but the maintenance and whatnot will eventually lead to that. And I like that's a possibility. From image to presence. Barren forms might be seen as forms that existed before the onset of the state of becoming. You are now in the final stage of the state of becoming. You now know who you are, and so now you can begin the work or the relationship of this final stage. The stage of becoming who you are. This is the stage in which movement, being, and expression come together into the recreation of wholeness that will be expressed in the elevated self of form. The creation story is occurring right now in each of you who have reached this final stage of becoming. This is both the beginning stage and the final stage. For once begun, the story of creation moves inevitably to join with the accomplishment and wholeness that already exists in unity. Creation occurs in each of us, seemingly one at a time. Creation is our coming into our true identity and is the extension or expression of that identity into the creation of wholeness in form. Thanks.
To be barren, excuse me, to be barren is to be empty. Empty is the opposite of full, the opposite of wholeness. It is the perceived condition of lack. It is the belief that what animated form with life did not remain. The belief that in the passing through, a relationship did not form. But as can be easily seen, the earth is no longer a formless wasteland. Form was animated with spirit and entered a state of becoming. You were animated with spirit, and you too entered a state of becoming. You can be an expression of being and yet not express the wholeness of being. This is a description of the state of becoming. It is a perceived state. It is a state in which the unified principles of creation are seen to be taking place as separate steps. This is so because of the condition of time. Once these principles are unified, time will have ended, just as time was once begun. Kim.
The unified principles of creation, once unified within each of us, bring light to each of us. They bring the ability to see, the ability to know, the ability to be, the ability to create. Through the art of thought, these abilities become who we are. God and creation are synonymous, and you are reminded of that here as you and God become synonymous through creation. Means and end are one. Cause and effect the same. Creation is means and end, as God is means and end. Creation is cause and effect, as God is cause and effect. When you move from the state of becoming to the state of being whole, you will have moved through the act of creation, and you will have become creator. You will be ready for creation of the new. You were told within this course that being is as love is. Here you are told that being is a principle of creation, and you are not told that love is a principle of creation. Love is not a principle any more than it is an attribute. This is because love remains in eternal wholeness. Love cannot be learned, and so has stood apart from the time of learning. Being could be learned here because it was not yet whole. Being is synonymous with identity. When your being and your identity, yourself and your awareness of self are whole and complete, being, like love, is no longer capable of being learned, for it no longer has attributes.
Love is the spirit of the wind that animates all form. Love is spirit. It is God. It is creation. Love is a description of the all of all because it is whole and rests in eternal completion and wholeness. Love is the state of unity, the only relationship through which the self and God become known to you. Love, God, creation are all that remained in union, in eternal completion, when form came into being. Yet movement, being, and expression are also what is because they are the givens. Love, like God, like creation, is the giver of the givens. Life was given through the extension and the expression of God, of love, of creation, through the extension of wholeness, into the seemingly separate identities of form. The way of that extension was the way of the unified principles of creation, the way of movement, being, and expression. The difference between the way that is and what is lies in choice. While you think that you can choose to stand apart from God, apart from love, apart from creation, you cannot. But you can, while existing in time and form, choose to stand apart from movement, being, and expression. You can choose, in other words, to exist without allowing spirit to move you, without allowing yourself to be who you are, without allowing for self-expression. You might think that you can be simply because you exist in that, as long as you exist in form, you are being because you are being something. You are alive. You have form, you think and feel. You have been told that you would cease to be without the existence of spirit. And so you think you must at least be. You are, after all, called a human being.
Chantal.
While you are becoming, you are still being acted upon by creation. You are still being acted upon by creation because you are not yet whole. When you are whole, creation's principles will be what you do and what you are, rather than what is happening to you. Creation's purpose, creation's cause and effect is wholeness and the continuing expression of wholeness. While it was said in a treatise on the new that now is the time to move out of the time of becoming who you are to the time of being who you are. It was not said that this time of becoming was completed. And yet, giving and receiving are one in truth. All of the principles of creation are in accord with this truth, and thus these truths occur in unison or in union. Becoming is movement. Movement is given and becomes movement in form. Being is given and becomes being in form. Expression is given and becomes expression in form. Since you were conceived in form, you were in movement. Since you were conceived in form, you were being. Since you were conceived in form, you were expressing. It would be impossible for these principles of creation not to be constantly occurring in everything that lives, because all that lives, lives because of creation's continuing creation.
Andy, are you wanting to read today?
Mm.
I guess we're back to Misha.
Just give me a moment and I'll be back.
Oh, okay.
Just
Okay.
sorry, go on with your reading. I'm
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
in the middle of something. Thank you.
Oh, you do a couple of paragraphs in Misha and then Andy.
Hang on. When you see me off mute, you know I'm around. Thanks.
Okay.
Becoming is the movement from image to present. It is upon you as we speak. It is not alert state or process, and it should not be seen as a cause for disappointment. Perhaps you thought you were beyond this point of becoming, and yet, as you have begun the practice of awareness, acceptance, and discovery, you have felt as if you have a long way to go. You have often thought that even though you may be done with learning, you don't feel quite complete or possibly even feel as if learning has not quite been accomplished in you. This is precisely why we now discuss this state of becoming, this movement from image to present. There is creation going on in this becoming. The very creation promised you. This is the creation of the new you that you were told will precede the creation of the new world. This is what is meant by, quote, as within, so without. Only a new you can create a new world. The new you is the elevated self of form. You are in the process of becoming. This time of becoming is the time in between your awareness of and access to Earth consciousness. or unity. In your sustainability, Christ consciousness or unity. In form. In your time of directly experiencing the movement, being an expression of unity, you are becoming, you are being who you are. At other times, you are becoming who you are. In your time of directly experiencing the movement, being an expression of unity, you are whole and complete. You feel no lack, no uncertainty, no doubt. You are confident in what you know. You realize fully that you are no longer a learning being and that you have no need for teachers or for guidance other than for that which comes from your own heart.
Thank you, Nisha. Kevin, are you going to read any more or are you done?
Yep, I think I'm okay. What are we up to?
15.
At times, that one?
Yep.
At times, when you are not directly experiencing the movement, being an expression of unity, you realize the state of becoming. To realize the state of becoming is to realize that an in-between exists between the time of learning and the time of being, the elevated self of form. That time still exists in which you are not wholly present as who you are. When you are not wholly present as who you are experiencing still the image or after image of who you are. This image is like a lingering shadow. It encompasses all of your former ideas about yourself, all of the patterns of the time of learning, all of the movements in which you feel
moments.
What did I say?
Movements.
All of the moments in which you feel an inability to join in union and in which you recognize still the image of your former self.
Mm-hmm.
Did I read 2?
Yeah. Andrew.
I like what they're talking about at the moment. This is only an image. This is not your personal self, your ego self, or your separated self come to reclaim you. This is why we have also described this as an after image. This is but a photograph that remains a copy of what you once might have thought of as your original self. It is but an impression, as in clay, or a reflection, as in a mirror. It is as removed from who you are as is the picture of an ancestor or a landscape that hangs on your wall, separate from what it is an image of. There may be striking beauty in this image, as there is in an art of all kinds. This may be an idealized image of your former self, the image of your best self, who you may imagine now, through the grace of God, you finally are. But this may also at times be an image of a type, a construction of the subconscious, which still sees in forms and symbols. This kind of image may leave you thinking that you are acting as if you have changed, while even within your new actions, you see archetypes of the previously known and previously experienced.
The stimulus for these after images is gone. They are but sensations that remain, like memories of childhood. This time of becoming is a time of coming to acceptance of them as what they are, images. This time of becoming is a time of coming to acceptance that they are not real. They are no more real than the mirage of your future, another aspect of the image you have held of yourself. They are no more real than was your image of heaven, or any image you have had of heaven on earth, paradise found. The time of becoming is a time of letting these images be without reacting to them. It is a time of coming to no longer hold these images in your mind and heart. It is a time of letting them first cease to affect you, and then of letting them go entirely. For without letting them go, you are not fully present. Without letting them go, your presence is not wholly realized. You are not fully here, not whole, not complete. You are at times who you are, but you also are at times but an image of who you have perceived yourself to be. This image, being but an image, is incapable of true joining in relationship. You must be fully present in order to join in relationship. All of your images are false images, and when you retain them, you do not allow for the time of learning to be replaced with the only replacement that will sustain Christ consciousness. The replacement of learning with sharing in unity and relationship.
I think we'll maybe leave it there for the day. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. I'll see you next week, and some of you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
The Rancher book, anyone wants to join for that? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
all.
Much love.
It was a good one.